Hello, hello, hello. So, NVIDIA's stock just tanked. China released an AI model. It's called the R1. There's some say it's better than O1, some say it's not. It's related to China. It's Sam Altman's like pay $200 for O1 Pro. R1 is free. What is happening? No, like there's so many things happening, right? So let's just cover all of that today. And don't worry, I've got you covered. And yeah, stay tuned. So let's get started. So what is with R1, right? Okay, let's just get it right off the bat. What happened? So DeepSeek last week, DeepSeek is this company last week, they launched a model called R1 and it broke the internet, frankly. It's their new frontier model that's open source, free for use, right? And they have publicly launched papers on how it's performing and everything. And why is this a big news, right? And why is it even related to the NVIDIA crash? That's a big deal. Like why would a launch for an AI company crash down an entire bigger company that's throwing out GPUs and hardware to run these companies? So it is weird, right? Let's figure it out, right? But even before going into that, let's just go a little bit on what the whole environment is, right? So OpenAI, our primary ChatGPT king or whatever, right? They had launched O1, I believe, a couple months ago, and that was their state-of-the-art model that reasons or thinks like a human. It reasons through things. It asks questions. It figures things out very much like a human, which is very unlike how models behaved before, because models would just spit sort of text out based on some question you gave. So O1 was the first model that they launched that actually would think like a human, and it was the king. And then but it's closed source, and what I mean by that is we don't know how it was trained. We don't have any information on that. It's all secretive. And that, contrary to what OpenAI sounds like, it's closed, right? And so naturally, they had the monopoly for a very long time, right? Their models everyone uses a lot in this world, but nobody actually has access to in terms of being able to see what's happening under the hood. So we were paying the price for what they were charging. $200 per month was the pricing for their O1 Pro. You could get the cheaper one for $20, but it's still a lot of money, right? However, just last week, there was a model released by a Chinese company called DeepSeek that released a model called R1, which effectively beat it. And guess what? It's free. You can literally go on their website and run a prompt and use R1 and it will work. It works amazingly well. So that's actually that's the impressive part. And that's just one of the things. Here's some more important information. So first of all, the company that built this was not even an AI company. It was a quantitative like hedge fund. I think it's called High Flyer. So, and the co-founder is Liang Wenfeng. So this guy, hilarious by the way, we'll talk about it. They said it was a side project for them. So they were building, they're a quant company. So they're hedge fund, they do trading. So it's finance, tech, all that stuff. It's fintech. And they had some GPUs lying around. And so they were like, well, might as well just build the best model and give it away for free. So that's what they did. And not only that, the cost that they've approximately calculated for how much it took to train and create this model is about $5.5 million, which sounds like a lot. But if you compare it to what OpenAI spends for a similar project annually, you're going to be surprised. It's $5 billion. 5 billion, 5.5 million. I think that's an order of magnitude difference. So that's insane that they were able to do it at that price. And it's a very different way of training too. For those a bit more technical, let's go into a little bit of the details. Typically, you usually have these big models. The way they're trained or fine-tuned is using SFT, and then maybe some reward modeling, and then maybe some RL or reinforcement learning. But DeepSeek R1, the way they achieved this sort of breakthrough is by a pure reinforcement learning or pure RL sort of pipeline right after, pre-training phase. And so that was very surprising, and it worked for them at a very astounding price. So I think that's very, very interesting for everyone to learn. If anything, I think that is very, very impressive and good that I think everyone knows how it's done now. The paper is amazing. I'll actually cover the paper itself later in another video about going into the details and actually explaining some of the concepts within it. But for now, let me just look through some of the details of the paper, because it shows you the benchmarks basically. And that's sort of, they tested it out on several benchmarks. And over here, especially here, you can just see DeepSeek R1. It's the blue, the dark blue one, and compared against sort of the light gray, that's the OpenAI O1 model, right? And so you can see it's a very close performance, beats it in some metrics, and in sort of the Math 500 and AIME. AIME is basically the Math Olympiad version. For those of you in India, you might actually not know that. So it's the Math Olympiad version in the US. So it beats sort of a benchmark that sort of tests that. It's not the highest level. I believe it's the regional level. So yeah. So that, and then even the software engineering benchmark. So basically, if you see, these numbers are pretty cool, because they're indicating that they perform really well, or really close to a 1, which is insane, which is very impressive. And in terms of, but that's not even, that's half of the story. The other half is how cheap it is to even like use it, because the other part is, OpenAI really had the sort of model monopoly till today, basically. So they were able to charge whatever they wanted to. However, DeepSeek is very cheap. And how much cheaper? You're going to be surprised. Let's go over the numbers here. DeepSeek R1 charges 14 cents per million tokens for cache hits, while OpenAI's O1 charges $15 per million tokens of input. So both of these are input. And for output, you're going to have R1 costs about $2.19 for a million tokens, while OpenAI charges $60 for a million tokens. That's now a million token. What's input output? Well, input is the numbers. So any text you put into a model, that's considered an input token, and tokens are sort of broken down pieces of the larger sort of text that you put in. It's like a token. So you break it up into tokens and then you pass it in, and the output tokens are pretty much the same, but it's the generated output that a model gives you. But roughly, you can see the numbers are insane. There's a 99%. They're 99% cheaper. That's insane. That's a crazy number, especially when you're thinking about companies that are using these models to do things, right? Now everything that they were doing with those AI models they can just replace it with R1, and it's going to be 99% times cheaper. Like, that's crazy. And if anything, this is really good for competition, because it simply means that now OpenAI has to drop their numbers or no one's going to use it. However, there's of course a lot of interesting news around R1, specifically because, well, it's from China. There's a lot of news about that. So you know what? We're actually going to have a look at sort of some tweets and some current news, and actually debunk some information that's wrong, so that's not true, and some that's actually true and pretty valid. So yeah, let's go to the next segment of this of our show, I guess. So yeah.